The crew of the Sovereign, a sleek military-class starship, landed on the surface of Epsilon 12, its engines burning a trail of fire as the ship descended into the thick blue atmosphere. Captain Jack Preston stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the massive planet below. Despite the advanced technology of the Coalition's fleet, there was something inherently unsettling about the unknown. The mission, though not classified, was shrouded in ambiguity, and that made every member of the crew nervous. "All systems are stable," reported Lieutenant Rachel Carter, her voice steady as she worked through the landing procedure. "We're approaching the designated drop zone now, Captain." "Good. Let's keep this quick and clean," Jack said, his tone resolute but laced with an edge of wariness. His eyes, however, betrayed an unease that few would dare to question. "Stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into down there." As the ship touched down, the crew filed out through the airlock, stepping into the unknown. Their boots sank slightly into the soft, alien soil, and the air was thick with a strange metallic taste. Above them, the sky was a patchwork of swirling violet and azure clouds, the atmosphere dense and oppressive, like something alive. The planet's surface was eerily silent. No birds, no sounds of animals rustling in the distance. The only noise was the hum of their equipment and the steady rhythm of their breathing. The only visible life was the strange, glowing vegetation that seemed to pulse faintly under the dim light, as though the planet itself were holding its breath. "This place feels wrong," muttered Lieutenant Jonah Miles, the team's security officer, as he scanned the surroundings. His hand hovered over the rifle slung across his chest, an instinct more than a necessity. Jack nodded. He could feel it too, a tension in the air, a whisper of something ancient and forgotten. They were not alone, but the silence spoke louder than any threat could. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, their comms crackled with static. Then, a single message broke through. "Human signal detected. On frequency. Human." And then the transmission cut out. The signal was brief, fragmented, and unsettling. It was unmistakably human, but the message had barely registered before the static swallowed it whole. Jack Preston felt his pulse quicken. The voice had sounded desperate, as if the person on the other end was running out of time. "Did anyone else catch that?" he asked, turning to the crew. Lieutenant Rachel Carter nodded, her brow furrowing. "It was a human transmission, Captain, but it was weak. Something's interfering with our comms." "Could be the planet's atmosphere," Jonah Miles said, checking the device on his wrist. "This place is full of electromagnetic anomalies. Maybe that's why the previous teams couldn't establish contact. We should keep moving." The crew, now on high alert, moved deeper into the jungle, navigating dense underbrush and towering alien trees that seemed to pulsate in the dim, filtered light. The air was thick with humidity, making every breath feel heavy. As they walked, the vegetation shifted beneath their feet, roots and vines recoiling like they were alive, pulling back whenever a human touched them. The deeper they went, the more they began to notice the oddities of Epsilon 12's ecosystem. There were no birds, no rustling of small animals in the underbrush. The entire jungle felt empty. The only sound was their own footsteps, the occasional creak of branches, and the low hum of the environment. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Then, out of nowhere, the ground trembled. The trees shook as a low growl vibrated through the air, sending a ripple of tension through the crew. Jonah's hand tightened on his rifle, eyes scanning the shadows. The growl came again, louder this time, followed by a series of clicks and screeches. Jack motioned for the team to stop. "Hold position. We're not alone." Suddenly, from the dense foliage, a massive shape lunged at them. A six-legged, multi-eyed creature with fangs that dripped with venom. But it froze mid-pounce, its glowing eyes locking onto the humans. For a moment, neither moved. The creature hesitated. And then, without warning, it turned and vanished into the jungle, as if the humans weren't even worth attacking. Did it just avoid us? Jonah whispered, his voice a mix of disbelief and fear. Jack was silent, his mind racing. The more they discovered, the more it seemed like Epsilon 12 wasn't a random Deathworld. It was something much more deliberate. "Stay alert," he ordered. "We're just getting started." The creature's abrupt retreat left a heavy silence hanging in the air, as if the planet itself was watching them. The crew, shaken but resolute, continued their trek deeper into the jungle. Every step felt more like an intrusion, a violation of something ancient, something waiting. They pushed forward, reaching the base of a jagged mountain range by nightfall. The sky above was choked with dense clouds, and the air shimmered with the faint glow of electrical discharges that seemed to crackle unpredictably. "We should set up camp here," Jack said, his voice firm, but his mind still racing. "It's safer until we get a better idea of what we're dealing with." The team quickly set up a perimeter, but even as they worked, something about the surrounding area felt wrong. The jungle was unnervingly still, as though holding its breath. Rachel stood by the comms equipment, trying once more to reach the source of the mysterious human transmission. "Still no luck," she said, frustration creeping into her tone. "Whatever's blocking our signal is strong. If there's someone out here, they're either hiding well or something's keeping them quiet," Jack finished for her. He wasn't sure why, but he had a sinking feeling that the latter was more likely. Night came swiftly on Epsilon 12, and the shadows grew long. The crew huddled around a fire, their eyes darting nervously between the dark jungle and the flickering light of their camp. It wasn't until the third hour of the night that Lieutenant Carter found something, half buried under a tangle of roots just outside their camp. At first, it looked like a piece of debris, a metal plate. But as Rachel and Jack moved to inspect it, they realized it wasn't debris at all. It was an artifact. Covered in strange alien symbols, it emitted a faint hum that seemed to vibrate in their bones. Jack knelt down, brushing away the dirt. "This looks ancient. Definitely not something any human tech would use." "I think it's a message," Rachel said softly. She ran a finger over the symbols. "These patterns. I've seen them before in some of the ancient texts. They're Warden glyphs." "Warden?" Jack's voice was low. "As in the wardens of the galaxy's forgotten civilizations." Rachel nodded. "The same. But why would they be here, on this planet?" As the truth sank in, the crew realized that the answers to Epsilon 12's deadly secrets were buried beneath their feet. And it was clear that only they, the humans, had the potential to uncover them. But the more they learned, the more questions arose. What were the Wardens preparing humanity for? And why had they left this world in such a dangerous state? The questions would soon be answered, but not without consequences. The artifact was far more than they initially thought. After an hour of intense scrutiny under the camp's dim lights, Rachel Carter and Dr. Peter Vaughn, the team's tech specialist, were able to extract a fragment of the alien message encoded into the artifact. The symbols on its surface began to glow faintly, as if responding to the human touch, and with each passing second, a translation began to emerge on their screens. "It's a warning," Rachel said, her voice trembling as she read aloud. "This world is not yours. This world is a trial. Only those who endure can inherit the legacy. Endure, Jack repeated, his mind racing. Endure what? Peter, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and concern, added, "This is not just an artifact. It's a key to something much larger." He examined the object further. "Look at these circuits. This is advanced tech, almost like something that interfaces with the environment. It's like the planet is, alive, and the artifacts are its conduits." The meaning began to take shape in Jack's mind, but it didn't make any sense. Why would an ancient, forgotten race go to such lengths to create a planet that could only be survived by one species, humans? It seemed deliberate, almost as if they had been expected. Who were the Warbons? Rachel asked, almost to herself. What did they know about us? Before Jack could answer, the camp's perimeter alarm suddenly blared, cutting the conversation short. The crew leaped to their feet, weapons drawn, scanning the tree line. "There's something out there," Jonah Miles said, his voice tight, as he adjusted the scope of his rifle. "Movement at the edge of the camp. Looks big, and it's not alone." The jungle seemed to come alive, rustling with an unnatural intensity, as if the planet itself had stirred from its deep slumber. In the distance, an eerie, low growl reverberated through the trees, sending a chill down their spines. "We're being hunted," Jack muttered, his hand tightening around his pulse rifle. "But why are they waiting?" Before anyone could respond, the growls grew louder, closer. Something massive emerged from the jungle, its glowing eyes fixing on the humans in the camp. A huge predator, cloaked in shadow, its sleek form shifting with terrifying speed. And behind it, others, many others. It wasn't just a hunt, it was an ambush. The air grew thick with tension as the massive predators emerged from the shadows of the jungle. They were silent, their glowing eyes the only visible sign of their presence, like the haunting glow of distant stars. The crew froze, weapons at the ready, as the creatures slowly encircled the camp. Jack Preston's pulse quickened. These creatures were unlike anything he'd seen before, bigger, faster, and smarter than anything on Earth. Their predatory gaze fixed on the humans with chilling intelligence. "Form a circle. Back to back," Jack commanded. "Watch your six, people. Stay sharp." The creatures were closing in, their movements fluid, calculating, like they were testing their prey. Jack's mind raced as he scanned the jungle. Why hadn't they attacked immediately? It was as though they were waiting for something, observing the humans as if they knew exactly what they were capable of. The creature's behavior was too deliberate to be instinctual. It was almost as if they understood fear. "Move!" Jonah shouted suddenly, breaking the standoff as he fired a burst from his rifle into the air. The creatures flinched, and for a heartbeat they hesitated, but only for a heartbeat. The creatures lunged. The first one attacked with incredible speed, its jaws snapping just inches from Rachel's face. She dove to the side, her rifle firing instinctively as she rolled. The round hit the creature in the shoulder, but it barely slowed. Another jumped toward Jonah, knocking him to the ground, its claws sinking into his armor. Fall back to the ship," Jack yelled. He sprinted toward the line of trees, his team following as they laid down a barrage of gunfire. The plasma rounds ripped through the dense foliage, lighting up the jungle in flashes of blue light. But the creatures were relentless. As they retreated, Jack's mind raced. The animals were showing a level of coordination, even strategy. They weren't acting like mindless beasts. Something was wrong. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life again. "Human signal detected. On frequency, human." The voice was faint, but it was unmistakably the same as the one they'd heard earlier. It sounded urgent, desperate. "Hold up," Jack barked. "We're not leaving until we know who that is." The planet's deadly creatures might be waiting for them, but now Jack knew something even more dangerous was on the horizon. They weren't just being hunted by the wildlife. They were being watched. The jungle was alive with chaos as the team scrambled, fighting back the relentless creatures that had closed in around them. Jack Preston's heart pounded in his chest as they moved in a disorganized retreat. The strange predators, with their shimmering eyes and sleek bodies, were relentless. They seemed to anticipate every move the humans made, adapting with every exchange of gunfire. For the first time, Jack felt the full weight of the danger they were up against, not just in the creatures themselves, but in the eerie intelligence that seemed to drive them. "Move! Get to cover!" Jack shouted, firing his weapon into the dense undergrowth. Plasma bolts lit up the air, but the creatures were fast, dodging and weaving with unnatural precision. Rachel Carter was at the rear, her rifle raised as she covered the group. Sweat was dripping down her face, but there was no time to wipe it away. She could feel the pulse of the planet in the air, the hum of something far greater than just a fight for survival. It was as if the world itself was alive, guiding them, testing them. The predators were learning faster than they could adapt. "Keep moving," Johnny yelled, his voice strained as he fought off one of the creatures that had clamped onto his leg. He kicked it off, but not before it left a nasty gash. The pain was intense, but there was no time to feel it. As they reached the edge of the jungle, Jack's comms device beeped urgently. A message flashed across his screen, sending a shiver down his spine. "Human signal. Coordinates locked. Your survival. Key." The words didn't make sense, but it was clear enough. The signal was coming from somewhere ahead, further into the jungle. Whoever was sending it was either a survivor or something much worse. It didn't matter. They needed to reach them. "Forget the ship," Jack growled, his voice hoarse. "We're going after the signal." The team hesitated, but Jack's eyes were burning with a fierce determination. The planet was trying to kill them, but they weren't going to give in. Not yet. "We find this signal, or we don't make it out alive," Jack said, gripping his rifle tighter. "Move out now." As they plunged back into the jungle, the air seemed to grow colder, and the silence that followed felt like the calm before a storm. The hunt wasn't over, but this time they were the ones doing the hunting, and they would learn the truth of Epsilon 12, no matter the cost. The deeper they ventured into the jungle, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It wasn't just the dense air or the heat. It was as if the planet itself was closing in around them, the trees leaning in and the ground shifting beneath their feet. It was unsettling, a constant reminder that they were intruders in a place that had been untouched by humans for millennia. Yet, somehow, the more they pressed forward, the more the planet seemed to recognize them, react to them. "Keep moving, but keep your heads on a swivel," Jack ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. The sound of rustling in the trees and distant growls still echoed around them, but it was different now. The predators had fallen back, more cautious, waiting. Rachel Carter could feel it too. Something was shifting. It wasn't just the creatures, something deeper. The jungle, the earth beneath their feet. It was like they were being drawn toward a singular point. The signal was growing stronger, pulling them like a magnet. "Captain, we're close," Rachel said, her voice tight as she checked the comms tracker. "The source of the signal is just ahead, but it's strange. The readings are fluctuating." "I don't care how strange it is, just get us there," Jack replied. His jaw was set. There was no turning back now. Whatever this was, they had to face it. As they approached a clearing, the atmosphere became even more bizarre. The air grew heavy with a low-frequency hum, and the ground seemed to vibrate under their boots. The trees around them were now bent in strange, unnatural angles, as if they had grown to face them. It was as if the entire clearing had been designed, shaped, or even asterisk invited asterisk them. At the center of the clearing, a structure emerged, half submerged in the earth, yet unmistakably artificial. It was a relic, ancient and buried, but still thrumming with power. An imposing archway, covered in the same glowing Wharton symbols, stood before them. It looked like a door, no, a threshold, leading deeper into the mysteries of Epsilon 12. "This is it," Rachel whispered, stepping forward, drawn by an unseen force. "This is the key." But before they could approach, the ground beneath them shuddered violently, and the clearing erupted into chaos. The jungle was alive once again, not with predators, but with something far worse. The planet was waking up. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The sky darkened, the swirling clouds overhead crackling with energy. The planet's pulse had quickened, as though it had recognized the human's proximity to its core, a core that had been dormant, waiting for this very moment. The ancient structure before them hummed with raw, uncontained power. "This is it," Rachel murmured, her voice barely audible over the deafening roar of the atmosphere. "We've triggered something." Jack nodded, his eyes never leaving the glowing archway. This is what the Whartons left behind. A test. A legacy. But even as he spoke, a new presence stirred in the air. The jungle, once filled with distant growls and lurking predators, now seemed to recoil from them. The trees rustled violently, and the ground cracked open with a deep, resonating sound. Something was coming, and it wasn't just the planet. From the darkness of the jungle, a massive figure emerged, towering above them. A Wharton, or something like it, stepped into the clearing, its form covered in a shimmering, translucent exoskeleton that hummed with the same energy that now vibrated through the air. Its eyes glowed with an ancient, unblinking intelligence. Rachel stepped forward, instinctively, her heart racing. It's them. The Wardens, they're still here. The creature, part organic, part machine, regarded them with an unsettling stillness. For a moment, Jack feared they were about to be wiped from existence, reduced to nothing more than a footnote in the planet's long history. But then, a voice echoed through their minds, alien, yet strangely familiar. Asterisk, you have passed the trials of this world. You are the inheritors now. You have earned the right to rule. The words were not spoken, but understood. The Warden's voice, an ancient echo of a race long forgotten, reverberated in their minds. The planet had tested them, forced them to adapt, survive and evolve, and now the final trial was complete. The jungle began to calm. The rumbling stopped. The world was still. The Warden bowed its head slowly, acknowledging them. Jack took a deep breath, the weight of their victory settling over him. Humanity had survived, not just on this deadly world, but because of it. The legacy of the Wardens, of Epsilon 12, now belonged to them. As the sky cleared and light broke through the clouds, a new dawn began, not just for the planet, but for humanity itself. They had been forged in the crucible of Epsilon 12, and now they were ready to face the stars. The galaxy had watched them, but now they would lead.